Welcome once again. We are doing another live Zoom gathering with our indie author, Deborah Reed. Hi, Deborah. This is Pages Promotions Summer Indie Book Festival. Andrew, I'm so glad you're having a good time with this. What we're trying to do through the month of June is just make people aware of some indie authors that maybe you hadn't heard of before, get you to read some new books, and just provide some connectivity for our community, which hasn't been able to connect because of the virus. So the intention for today is just like it is every time. We are, imagine if you will, standing at a book festival, huddled around a table, just chatting to whoever happens to pop up or have comments, questions, whatever. No need to raise your hand. Feel free to step on top of me if you feel like it. I can handle it. So we're going to start first with Deborah. Hey, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
The book that we're featuring, you have 11 books, but the one that we're going to feature most today is this one. Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change. I gotta tell you, I love your cover artist.
Yes, honestly, his name is Philip Lowe. He was a childhood friend of mine, and he is now a professional artist. And I tried to do my own covers, and it worked very badly. And so I just kind of contacted him and said, hey, have you ever done book covers? And he said, no, but I want to try. And I said, great. And I've had so many compliments, and I've had so many people who walk by my table at events, and then they tell me later that they stopped because of the covers.
Oh yeah, your covers are striking. I mean, when we had them at the bookshop, it was pretty amazing to see them all lined up on the shelf together. It's quite eye-catching. So kudos on choosing a good artist. Can you give us a brief synopsis of this particular book, pretty please? Again, just for those of you at home. Here's the book again. Let me see if I can. There, now it's trying to.
Yeah, Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change actually kind of happened. I typically write YA, realistic fiction, and YA that can hopefully kind of carry a message as well as entertain. Because kids just go, well, we all go through so much today and deal with so many different things, and I just kind of try to want to write something that entertains them but also maybe helps them navigate life a little bit. And I was actually at a writing retreat, and my friend Maggie looked at me and she said, hey, you should write your next one on teenage homelessness. And I kind of went, oh yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really strike me as anything. And then my friend Rob heard her and whipped around and said, yeah, that's really a problem in Canada where I live. And I went, oh wait, this is a thing. And like, I really honestly had no idea. I mean, it just kind of shows how sheltered maybe I am, or that I just don't really know. And so I brought it back to my husband, who's a teacher, and I said, is this really that big of a deal? And he said, yeah, we actually had a coach who not caught, but found one of the high schoolers living in a storage unit.
Wow.
In the school. And so I said, so this really is a problem. And so it kind of came about, and actually it's following two high schoolers. Some are in Midas. Their stories are separate to begin with, but it kind of follows how they become homeless, the things that they have to deal with in their home lives, and then not having a home at all. And then at some point during the story, their stories kind of converge and they meet each other. And it really is kind of wanting to give, help people realize that this is a problem, what a lot of these kids are going through in their home lives and that causes this, but also to kind of give them hope, and especially to show how important it is to ask for help when you're in a situation like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other great thing that this book does is it offers kids who are going through this issue an opportunity to see that they're not an isolated case. They're not alone, and that they are not societal lepers because of it. You know, yeah. They're loving, kind, intelligent beings just like everybody else. The rest is geography. And so I love that you're offering that message to young people in a way that they can absorb it really easily.
Yeah. Well, and that was, I had a friend who's a teacher, and it was probably the biggest compliment I've gotten on the book so far. She was one of the first people to read it, and she sent me an email and she said, "You nailed it. You made it realistic. You kept it true to what a lot of people go through, but you didn't just give a hallmark ending at the end. You didn't just solve all of their problems. You kept it very realistic as to what has to happen next while showing that hope there."
Right. Yeah. And
So,
I think that that element of realism, even in young adult fiction, is super important. You know, we don't want them to live in a fantasy environment. We want them to see that this stuff is real life touchstone. So I applaud you for that. I think it's a great piece of work.
thank you.
Tell us about your other books. I know you have a stack of them sitting next to you.
I do.
And I want to give you an opportunity to introduce all of your work to everybody, because as I've been saying all month, the opportunity here is for us to reach readers that we normally wouldn't. And so these videos are going on YouTube, which means somebody might see it tomorrow. So tell us about your other books, if you would, please.
Well, actually, I had started out writing when I wrote my first novel when I was 14, and I loved action, adventure, suspense, mystery, all of that. The more people that died and things that blew up, the better. And I still do write a little bit of that, which I'll get to those in a minute, but I actually started writing YA when I met a young lady in my community who had had a stroke in the womb and therefore had some physical disabilities. She was always smiling when I saw her. She just had a beautiful personality. But I also found out through her mom that she really did struggle with self-doubts and feelings of whether or not she was worth enough being the way that she was. So I was going to write her a short story showing her how wonderful she was. And I wrote the first 5 pages of my first novel, Daisies in the Rain. I don't know, it looks like it's backwards.
Yep. No, it's not. It's frontwards for us. So.
So I wrote the first 5 pages, and my husband read it because I was like, am I even on the right track? I've never written anything like this before. And he said, yeah, you need to not limit it. You just need to let it be what it's going to be. And it turned into this.
A book.
And an entire book. And I just had such a wonderful reaction from it. I had a mother who had a daughter, had the same thing. Oh my gosh, Andrew, you're too sweet. Thank you.
Look at Andrew.
But I had a mother come up to me and say, thank you for redefining what cripple means. Thank you for putting this spin on it so people can kind of understand how special people with disabilities are.
Absolutely.
And to me, to know from so many people that I was helping them, not just entertaining them, but helping them, I couldn't step away from that. Just like I couldn't just go back to writing for entertainment, which there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, it really gave me a drive to want to help people. So my next door neighbor who babysits our kids, she was a teenager, and she read the story and she said, are you going to write more? And I said, I had thought about it. She said, you need to write my story. And I said, what's your story? And come to find out, she had to go through chemotherapy because of a blood disease. And
wow.
So that brought Dancing with Shadows. And that's actually her on the cover.
That's amazing. Wow. What a remarkable tribute to somebody who's contributed to your family. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And it just, to be able to tell these girls stories and kind of give them a voice was something really special for me. So then came the Rejects of Room 5, which actually I started, and it has a character from Mexico. His family came from Mexico. And during the time that I wrote this, I actually went to Mexico with my husband for our 10-year anniversary. And it was also during the time of all of the immigration uproar. And it directly impacted that book and the message that kind of went along with that book. Then I looked at my husband and said, what else are kids dealing with? And he said, oh my gosh, the stupid dares that kids are getting hurt doing.
Right. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that mayhem on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is basically kind of with the message of really how dangerous it is to care too much what other people think about you. And really that doesn't matter as much as you think it might. And the consequences, you may not be ready for what might happen if you take things too far to try to get people to like you. And then
also a great cautionary tale, you know, if you can present that kind of a message to young people where they will read your book and stop and go, oh, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the smartest of choices. I think you're doing a great service.
Yeah, well, and that's my hope, is just to help in some way, even if it's just one person.
Absolutely.
So then, and we already talked about Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change, how that came about.
Hi, Amy.
Amy.
Yeah, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. I just remembered.
We're really good friends, and I haven't seen her in like forever. So hi.
Yeah, this is great. Well, that's what this is all about. This is an opportunity for all of us to come together and just have a good time. Next book on the list.
Okay, so those are my young adult novels. I've also written some mystery thrillers. This was one I wrote several years ago, Web of Deceit. Just got a brand new updated cover.
That is a new cover. It's not the one I remember.
No, the one that you remember is one that I did. This is the one that Mr. Phil Lowe did.
Nice.
So much better.
I liked the old cover, but this is definitely nice.
I like the old cover. I have the old cover.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better.
I always liked that. I thought it was striking. So I think you did a good job.
Okay.
But I like the new cover as well. He did a good job. So tell us about that book.
Well, this one actually is about an Army Ranger who, he kind of was a character in another series I had, and I kind of pulled him out because he kept trying to take over. And I said, you need your own story. And so he, it basically combines past and present, where he was basically like this gregarious, lovable guy. He's about to ask the woman he loves to marry him. He's got a wonderful family, all of this. And sorry, my cat just decided to join me.
That's all right. That we like animals. It's okay.
Animal friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his whole family is murdered. And he knows who did it, but he can't prove it. And he can't find the man. And so many years go by, and he meets someone else and all of this. And then he finds out that his present life is combining with his old life. There's a direct link that he didn't know about. And so he's becoming obsessed with now trying to get the man who killed his family, because he's finding out, thinking there's a new chance to get to him, but he might lose everything he has in order to do that. So, and then I have a trilogy, but only 2 out. The third one is going to come out this fall. Thank you. When Darkness Killed Her is the first one, and it kind of introduces Caitlin O'Reilly, who was a police officer, and her father was murdered, and she takes over his private investigative firm. And she finds out that he was actually killed because she had been kidnapped at age 13, but the person had never been caught, and her father had finally found a lead and was actually killed because of that. And so that's the story of her trying to find out what had happened and who it was. And of course there's lots of betrayal and
Very good book.
Oh, thank you. And then the second one of that is When Vengeance Reigned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she's finally kind of starting to come to terms with her life, finally starting to get her feet under her, and a body shows up on her doorstep that says, "You're playing my game now, Caitlin." And she finds out that there were secrets in her family that she had no idea about. And there is someone intent on killing her and everyone that she loves. And then the third one is going to be called When Darkness Whispered Her Name. This one kind of wraps things up a little bit. This one ends on a massive cliffhanger.
Okay.
So the third one takes up immediately where that one leaves off. And
excellent. And it's coming out.
And what?
So you got to read 2 and 3 together.
Yeah, that would, yes.
Yeah. And then, so when is 3 coming out?
This fall sometime.
Okay.
I usually try to aim for about October, November.
And is this definitely then going to be a trilogy, or do you expect maybe another book afterward?
No,
Is it going to turn into a series, or is it pretty much done as a trilogy?
I think it's pretty much done as a trilogy.
Okay.
And I've already got some other ideas for other ones, so you know.
Of course you do.
We all know
Yeah.
how it is. You got to get those out.
Right. And then you have a couple others, don't you?
Oh yeah, I write short horror stories, like psychological horror stories, under H.G. Evans. So I have 2 volumes, Silent Screams and Silent Screams 2, under
Okay.
H.G. Evans. So my website is dareadauthor.com. These are not on there just because they're under H.G. Evans, and I'm working at putting up a website for that.
Okay.
You can find them on Amazon.
Okay.
So
This brings us into a question that comes up occasionally, and I'm always super curious about this. Why write under a pen name? Why did you choose to separate your work under 2 author names?
I honestly wouldn't have, except for the fact that I knew really fairly young kids were reading my young adult. Like Johnathan Rand bought a copy of Daisies in the Rain for every student and staff member of his August Author Quest camp, I think in 2006.
Wow, that's spectacular.
Yeah. And though the youngest kids there are 10. And so I didn't want a 10-year-old looking at like this saying, oh, it's D.A. Reed, I love her books, and then go, whoa, and then they have nightmares for, you know.
Yeah, that would be bad.
So that is quite honestly the only reason why I chose to write under a pen name for that. I just kind of wanted to keep it separate so that there weren't any mistakes on that end like that. No
So when you were
child
choosing your pen name, what brought you to make the final choice? I know some people write under their maiden name, some people write under a name they wish they had been named. What made you choose that name?
I can't remember exactly what made me settle on it, but it is actually my grandparents' initials, Helen and George Evans. My mom's parents.
Excellent.
And I don't know if I honestly cannot remember if I was like looking for a family type name or something like that. I mean, my paternal grandparents are Schreiner, and it's spelled really weird, and so it's like that's just too hard and too long.
Yeah.
So
it's always important that people know how to Google us and spell our names correctly.
Yes, Schreiner is not one of them.
Yeah.
I get the thing about the age, about not wanting readers that are too young to read some of this.
Mm-hmm.
But then we talked about the in a couple of videos ago about the rating system that are being put on some books.
Yeah.
Would that I'm sorry?
I might have missed that conversation.
Which is a site that has a
Yeah. So it's what Michael's referring to is a site called mybookcave.com, and they have a rating system for books where you can list your books in their database, and it's rated similar to movie ratings. And I found it really helpful, especially when I do public events, so that people can immediately see what the content is for my book.
Right. So do you think putting those kind of ratings would mitigate the chance of somebody too young reading it?
It would probably help. There would probably still be some kids who just do, who just pick it up without paying attention.
Yeah. Well, when I was that age, if I saw that rating, I probably would have said, yeah, this is the one I want.
Exactly.
I don't like the kids' books.
Yeah. But it might help. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, because even with my young adult, I mean, there are, like the last one, Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change, I entered it for a contest, and I didn't just put it under young adult. I put it under young adult with mature issues.
Yeah, and in this rating system, Deborah, I think there's 9 different ratings, and they're very gradient, so that you can see exactly what's, it's like all and young adult plus, mature plus, that kind of a thing. So there's a link on my website over to it, but you can also find it at mybookcave.com.
Okay.
Who's doing the ratings though?
It's a new literary organization that's come together to do this. They're probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, and more and more books are being listed with them, and I'm finding it tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
It's free to be a part of their database. It doesn't cost you anything, and then you get to put their rating logos. Like I put them in the back of my books, and I put them on my website so people can readily know. And then when I go to public events, I have a small little placard that I put in front of each book so that the parents can see what the ratings are and what the content is.
Yeah,
So
and
it's just something to look into.
When you read the description of the ratings, some of them are very precise in terms of how many instances of language or violence or so on. They break it down that fine.
Yeah, it is very gradient. So it's something to think about. For me, because I could never write under a pen name because I'd get it wrong and I'd sign the wrong name and I wouldn't answer to the right
Almost
name.
done that.
Yeah. Took me a year to get used to my married name, so forget it. But for people like me, having the rating system is really helpful because then I can write in multiple genres and not worry about who's reading the wrong stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, something to think about. Anyway, does anybody else have questions for Deborah? This is not just all about me, so you guys, I want you to, offer your questions, comments, whatever. Amy, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just talk.
I know, but sometimes I get cut off, so it's easier. And you may have already said this before we got in, but for your latest book, Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change, I'm just curious, like what inspired you and what research you did on it. It obviously is very well done, very honest. I just want to know a little more about it.
Yeah, the research part is especially cool. You definitely speak to that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, I did mention it was kind of inspired by a couple of friends who mentioned that teenage homelessness was an issue. The research, quite honestly, a couple different things. I mean, I Googled a bunch and just started reading through a lot of different sites, especially sites that help kids with teenage homelessness, and actually had testimonials from those kids, and to kind of explaining their feelings and like their emotions as they went through it and where they're at now. I contacted my husband's counselor at his school and just kind of asked her a whole bunch of questions about it so that I could kind of make it very realistic. Talking about kind of the mature issues. I mean, Midas has issues with drugs and things like that, and in relation to his father and that type of thing. And at one point I asked my husband, I was like, is this going too far, like for a young adult type of book? And he's like, no, this is nothing compared to what I know some of my kids go through.
Yeah.
And so it was a hard book for me to write, honestly. And I think some of it was because in order to make it as realistic as I did, I had to, one, come to terms with the fact that this stuff actually happens to kids.
Yeah, that's tough.
And then put myself in that position in order to write it as if it's me. And
so this book is written first person?
It is, yeah, both
Okay.
Summer and Midas. Each chapter is labeled with it's Summer or Midas. But yeah, I literally put myself in their position as I write it, trying to make it as realistic as possible.
Sure. Anybody else have questions?
I do. How long
Yeah.
does it take you to turn out one of your stories? They're so timely and topical.
Typically, depends on what's going on in my life. Because I do work and I do have an 8 and 9-year-old at home. I typically right now, I have been going about a year, like 6 months to write, a few months to edit, and then it's out within a year. And so like I've been having my young adult come out in the spring, and then while it's in the editing process, I'm working on my thriller mystery and then as that one is going into the editing process, I'm getting the other one ready to come out and that type of thing. And I'm really not hoping to keep up this pace. I'm hoping that with this trilogy done, I can kind of slow it down a little.
Sure.
But I have, what was I going to say? I don't know. Well, I can't remember what I was going to say. That happens to me a lot. But I would typically say about a year from start to finish.
Give us an idea of a day in the life. You've got little kids.
Mhm.
I tried writing when my son was little, and being a single parent, it was just not possible. So what's a day in the life like for you? How much writing time do you get, and how do you break that up between life-work balance?
Well, I only work part-time, so that's helpful. My kids are obviously sorry, my cat joined me again. They're both full-time in school, so that helps during the school year. I think the thing that I found to be most helpful is to release some of the pressure off of myself.
Mhm.
I typically try to set a standard of everyone has 10 minutes a day to write, whether that's at 6 o'clock in the morning when I get up, get my coffee and go write, or whether that's, 11 o'clock at night while my husband's brushing his teeth and I'm like typing away on the computer. Because that releases some of the pressure of, oh my gosh, I need to get all of this done like right now. And if I feel it and it's really coming easily, I'll just keep going if I have the time. And if I don't, I stop, I step away, I take care of what I need to with my kids or with my household or whatever else. And if I either come back to it later that day or I come back to it the next day. And I found that just by doing that every day, it kept the story fresh in my mind and it kept it all like right there. So it just, well, you know how you've heard of if you don't write every day or if you don't do something every day, then you kind of lose the muscle memory type thing.
Yeah, sure.
Harder. And it just kept it all right there. My mind was active constantly because it was constantly thinking about the story. And I found it that when I sat down to write, it was much easier just to go. And it was.
So you're a digital writer on the computer as opposed to longhand, or do you do both?
I kind of do both.
Okay.
I typically tend to do a lot on the computer just because I can't write fast enough.
That's my problem.
It down. Yeah, and because my mind works so fast, and then I start writing unintelligibly. Like I wrote one time, and then I was trying to type it up, and then I couldn't even read what I'd written, and it was just a horrible mess.
Yeah.
But I have started to do more longhand just because I have heard like from the time it takes for you to think and make your, do the muscle memory, the brain engaging and writing and everything, it gives you more time to think about what you're actually putting down so that maybe there's less editing needed later because you've already kind of thought through more what it should sound like. I haven't necessarily found that to be true, but I've actually found it actually very therapeutic almost to just actually spend some time writing instead of typing.
I tend to do more editing when I'm going longhand just because I can't read my own writing. So typing works for me. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for Deborah at this stage of our little conversation? Anybody?
No questions.
I don't want to monopolize things here, so.
You have my
book. Okay, so do you have any weird rituals that you have to go through, or unusual rituals that you have to go through when you're creating a new piece? Whether it's a piece for grown-up readers or a piece for young adult readers, do you have a specific set of tasks or mindset things or You know, see, Andrew, there he is. So do you have,
I'm waiting for
there-
the weird ritual.
do you have anything like that that you have to go through? A particular space you have to be in or anything like that?
I don't know that I have any rituals necessarily. I tend to read a lot of YA while I'm writing YA, because I'm not young anymore. And so it's like I need to really kind of get in there and know how they think and feel and talk and everything. I would say probably the oddest thing is I can know exactly how the book is going to start. I can have the first paragraph word for word in my head, and I will stall for at least 2 weeks before writing the first word, without fail. Every book, you would think I'd be past it by now. I'm not. Every time. And I think it's just that fear of once you start it, you can't go back. I mean, if that makes
you can. That's what the editing process is, right?
And you can, but at the same point, I try my hardest to, just because I have young kids at home and my time is limited, I try really hard to make sure that it's as close to what it's going to be as I can make it. I mean, there is always editing. I mean, no doubt, and some of it's more extensive than others. I wrote When Vengeance Reigned, and I had 3 people come back to me and say, yeah, the whole middle of this book needs to be rewritten. And after the 3rd person said that, I went, okay, fine, and rewrote the middle of the book. And I will admit, it's better. But, but I think that's probably just the weirdest thing. I mean, I'll sit there and just be thinking far off in space. My husband will look at me and he'll be like, what are you thinking about? And then he'll stop and he'll be like, it's your book, isn't it? He can just tell. It takes over.
We're one of the few slices of humanity that when we're staring off into space, we're actually working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Anybody else have any questions before I go on? No? Hi, Charlie. Yes. Yes, hi. Okay, so is there a genre that you would never choose to write in? Is there one topic, subject matter, genre that you would just say, no, you know, that's a hard no, I'm just not going to do that, or I don't have the imagination right now to do that? Is there one of those hanging out there?
I don't have the imagination for fantasy. I like reading fantasy and everything. I've tried writing it, but I think it has something to do with just creating a whole entire new world. That's just not my strength. I'm like, you know, writing something like this that's really realistic is something that I can do, but trying to completely build a world. I mean, like, I know Amy's done it and everything, and I've tried it, and it is the dumbest sounding stuff you've ever applied. As for something that I would not touch with a 10-foot pole, erotica.
Okay.
And quite honestly, some of that probably, I know, Andrew, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it probably has something to do with my upbringing. And I grew up Baptist with fairly conservative parents. And to try to write something like that would not only be uncomfortable for my mother,
right,
who won't, she can't even bring herself to read these.
Okay.
Which I keep telling her, I'm like, it's okay, Mom, it's okay. And but it would be uncomfortable for me to try to write. I don't know that I could do it convincingly, or that I would even want to try, because it would just.
I will say that you're blushing quite well.
I know. See, I can't even talk about it. I'm so red right now.
That's your next assignment. Break you out of your shell.
Yeah.
I like murder people very graphically sometimes, more graphically than people want to read sometimes. Isn't that enough?
No.
Yeah, Andrew, isn't that enough?
No.
No.
The entire human being, and I say being, is about all of it. I mean,
Yes.
It's like movies. The worst thing about movies is in very few movies does anyone go to the bathroom, but we all do it. But we exclude those things that make us uncomfortable, even though they're part of who we are. They've defined who we are.
And that's why potty in space is such a big question for little kids.
I know. It's a ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that flying by in anti-gravity? Catch that
Well,
quick. You know?
Even as an adult, when we went to the Kennedy Space Center, I came home with a dozen pictures of a space toilet. I don't know why.
Exactly.
No idea.
Well, keep in mind, the original Mercury capsule did not have one.
Yes, yeah. What's that, Dave? What is that? I can't see it. It's too tiny.
Kennedy
Kennedy Space Center. Yay!
Yeah. Sorry, I was a space camp
Nice.
guy with my kids. We went down to Huntsville. So.
Yeah, I wish I
But
could
we
have.
looked at the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to space camp next year.
You'll like.
Oh, I'm envious. I'm envious.
Oh, my husband would be envious. He's
Yeah.
very, you watch it, like the SpaceX stuff that's going
We
on.
did too.
I mean, like you can't pull him away from his phone or TV or no.
Did everybody sign up for Starlink today?
Didn't know it was out there.
They're going to be doing beta testing later, private beta later, but full beta, public beta probably at the end of the year in 2021. They're hoping to, Mr. Musk is hoping to give us all internet from satellite.
Oh, what fun. Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
So sign up today. Operators are standing by. No, I'm just saying that, you know, have you ever imagined writing any of the things that make you uncomfortable? And I know that's a personal question, but, you know, there are times that, you know, somebody says, well, have you ever done that? And I'll be the first to say that I have written erotica once, and it is sealed up and nobody will ever see it. But I wanted to see if it was possible.
Yeah, I wrote a book of poetry for the same reason.
Well, my first book was a book of poetry.
There
You
you
can
go.
still buy it. So,
I have given it some thought actually with some of the stuff I've written, even though it may not be in that specific genre, but like writing the short horror stories, I would have my husband read them, and after a while he'd kind of just give me that, yeah, and it's okay, it's okay. And I'm like, well, is it okay or is it good? And he was like, you have to understand that it's a little disturbing to know that this is in your head.
oh yeah.
And so after saying that, though, he did look at me and he said, knowing what you've written now, I would be very interested to know if you just like took off all restraints and just wrote 10 pages of whatever was in your head, what that would be. And I haven't done it yet, but I will admit I do want to try it because I do find myself putting in a little check, you know, especially even like with gore and everything. It's like, what's palatable? What can people handle? What can, you know, and that type of thing. So
that would be a really fun
Andrew.
challenge. That would be a really fun challenge exercise in a writing workshop. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. You and I could sit in a room and write 10 pages of everything coming out of our head and terrify the rest of the world.
We probably would.
Well, I mean, my horror stories come out just on Halloween every year.
Okay.
And some of them are, you know,
Pushing the envelope a little.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
one that pushes the envelope and one that you can read your children every year. But you know, it's if you think about it, letting that out occasionally is a lot. Poetry, I wrote a poem years ago that kind of described it, and when I read it to people, they go, should you be in a home right now? You know? So and that's one of the things when I met you that I was like, yeah, I know the inside of her head. I've been there.
Yeah.
Well, I have to.
Yeah. The last thing you
Correct
want
you.
is for somebody to fit you with a self-hugging jacket. That's not a thing. Amy, go ahead.
I just wanted to interject the whole, you know, writing in different genres and just tell that after meeting Deborah, she inspired me with her short stories. I actually had to try my hand at psychological thriller as well. So I've got a great story that I don't know that I'll ever publish, but I've done it now too. So, you know.
I was gonna
Well-
say she did write like a short horror story type thing, like psychological horror story thing that she sent to me after reading some of mine, and it creeped me out. I mean,
Oh,
you
good.
got it.
I told her she should do like a compilation book so people don't have to put their names on it, but everyone can, you know, submit their own horror story.
Submit one.
I've wanted to do that for years. I used to do it back. I own a site called Short Story Site, and I used to every year have a contest, but it became more policing who was plagiarizing somebody else. So the only person on it now is me.
Yeah.
But I'd love to do that again, is get the Dianas and the Deborahs and the Amys and put a bunch of short stories together that are a horrific journey, like Alfred Hitchcock did with Coffin Corner. And Alfred Hitchcock presents in his books. He had tons of different compilations. I think that that would be an awesome gift to the world.
What might be a really fun project for our little independent Michigan writing community to do is everybody submit something and then do it anonymously, and then have a contest to see if you can match the piece with the author.
I was going to say,
That
maybe
would be
like
awesome.
for the
That would
book,
be fun.
you know, you could do the compilation book and you could have everybody's name on the book, but not necessarily on the piece. You know, so it's
Exactly.
like, I don't know which one I wrote. I didn't write about my ex-husband. No. As an example, I don't know.
Did you put him in a meat grinder and watch the bones rend?
I did absolutely nothing. Now, my current husband may have done something. I don't know. But
Yeah, right.
No, I understand that. I wouldn't think of writing anything about my ex.
Right.
no.
Never. Never.
Never.
Mhm. Dave.
I think we could do a whole compilation of just ex stories or stories of things that terrible things that happened to exes.
The Ex Anthology. There you go.
The Exthology.
Anybody have any other questions or anecdotal things for Deborah?
Thank you, Deborah, for being you and writing great books.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think she's still read from the previous conversation.
I probably am.
The shirt doesn't help, but just
It's-
accent.
Well, I know, yeah, the shirt doesn't help.
Yeah,
but
it's
when
a-
I
it's a
blush, it takes
reflection
a
from the
while to
shirt.
go away.
It's okay. When I meet her in person, she blushes even more. Actually,
Yeah,
You have that
but
effect on people.
Andrew, yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't do that in your presence, so it's all right. I think
well.
it's a special gift you have for us.
I have no social conscience. Oh well.
Yeah,
Life's rough.
that's all right. We don't hold it against you. Anybody else have anything for Deborah before we wrap up this party? Okay, Deborah, can you once again tell us how we can find your work, your books, website, buy links, whatever you'd like to share with us at this point?
Yep. Probably the easiest way. I mean, I do have an Amazon page, and they are on Amazon and Lulu.com, but they are all on my website. So if you go to dareadauthor.com, and Reed is with 2 E's. Yep, they are all there. You can click on a link and you can buy it either from Lulu or Amazon, whichever one you'd like.
Can readers get signed copies direct from you if they choose?
I would
Or
say
do they have to wait for the next event?
either come to an event, or if you'd like a signed copy, just shoot me an email through the contact button on my website, and I'll make sure that you get one.
Awesome.
I also have a blog up I just put up. It's just knowing that you guys are writers, that you would appreciate this. I just recently put up a blog post actually last night that actually talks about how boredom can boost your creativity.
Mhm.
So if you're just kind of looking for a little fun read, and it was based off of a TED Talk, and the TED Talk link is on there. But I
Awesome.
found it like so incredibly amazing that I just wanted to share it with you guys, because I know you're all writers and what.
Yeah, very cool. Well, you know, we've all been looking for the energy go-to during quarantine. So anything we can do to have a little bit of boost would be great.
Yeah.
Andrew, even long distance, you're just ridiculously fun. I can't even believe this.
What I do.
Alrighty, so we're gonna wrap up our party today. This is Deborah Reed's book, Nothing But Gutters and Pocket Change right there. I love this cover. And you can go to dareed.com, right? To find your books.
Author.com.
Thank you, Andrew.
Author.com. Yes.
Okay. And again, this is our summer virtual book festival. We're doing this for the rest of the month. If anybody has missed any of our video conversations, they're all on our YouTube channel. You can also find links to them on our website at pagespromotions.com and also on our Facebook page. Thanks again for coming. We got another one of these.
Wait. Is she having a special?
What?
Are you having a special on your book?
I am not right now, no.
But one will be forthcoming probably when the new book comes out, so you should watch for that.
Yes.
Okay.
So thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. And today is our twofer day for the month. So come on back at 7 o'clock. We have another author who's going to be with us then. So come on back. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Hey, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.